What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Puff Puff Planted. This week, we are sitting here with Jake Gantz from Hype. Jake, what's up?
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
So you and I were talking about earlier your role within Hype. Give us a rundown of your experience of the industry leading up until your employment here at Hype, because it seems like you and I have a little bit of a background of having some fun in the traditional market.
Yeah, totally. So I guess it goes back to 2009 and got my first medical card and just had a 12 plant grow in a bedroom, and that evolved into becoming a full-fledged caregiver for 5 other patients and myself. So we went up to 72 plants, and I had a few indoor spots before I actually I got a spot with 13 acres out in Lapeer. We put up a greenhouse and had a couple of pole barns, so it just turned into this whole like compound out there that was like it was super fun. It was a very enjoyable time of life for me, because like it was like before the real like rat race had begun, so it was just like we're just hanging out, having fun, and growing some weed.
And then it turned into people getting their 72 plant grow into 9 different houses and turned into a whole enterprise.
Yeah, it was an enterprise. I mean, I met plenty of people who had their building subdivided into 8 separate suites.
Yep, in cards for every one of them.
In cards for every room.
So what got you into doing a lab director here at Hype then?
So, when the industry first started up, everything was so different. Anybody could grow, even if you weren't that great, and there just wasn't enough pot out there for everybody. So you could grow it, and, the dispensaries at that time, being that gray market, you could sell your overages to them, or I guess donate them, right? Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't a very good grower, so I had to find my place in a different sector of the industry, and I always enjoyed overindulging with some flour, so oil was the natural remedy for me, because I need something a little stronger than flour.
Yeah, it's a humbling experience learning how to cultivate cannabis, or cultivation in general, but cannabis is a whole different ballgame. I mean, you got a plant that responds very quickly to the ailments that it may have, or some of the feeding that you put, the structure you put it on, light leaks, the infestation of root aphids or thrips, or
even all the way down to the new tech, which is tissue cultures of viruses in your root base. That is like you would never know if you weren't sending tissue culture off to the lab. That's like literally. I mean, you can tell, because you're like, this room should have did really well. Everything was perfect. The Troll Master says I stayed within 10 degrees temperature the whole time.
Yeah, I think my first MJ Biz, I was in a suite conference, and we're sitting there, and everyone's hobnobbing, having a few drinks, and some gal comes up and she goes, "You guys ever do TC?" I'm like, "What's TC?" And then she starts talking about tissue culture and how you clean plant genetics. I'm like, whoa, like, what is this?
Next level. It's totally next level. And the cool thing is that the extraction is now finally like at least on the forefront of like what's being like discovered new right now, is like that's all next level chemistry of isolating cannabinoids that we didn't even know existed 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So like it's super promising to think that there is a whole plethora of other things that they're going to be able to do with this plant that we don't even like right now. It's not, or it's starting to be a possibility, but as of a few years ago, that wasn't even on the radar.
How did the lab environment transition from the traditional caregiver market to where you're at now? I mean, give us an example of what a lab looked like in the 12 plant grow.
So in the 12 plant grow, that consisted of a
bucket tech.
I was just gonna say a 35 gallon trash can, some ice, and some bubble bags, and we turned into bubble hash. And that's where it ended then. Like there wasn't rosin yet. Like there was nothing, and the people that were doing some butane stuff, that was back in the crazy days of open blasting. So, it was, are you going to risk your life to get stoned here? Most people weren't ready to do that. Right.
So give the viewers an understanding of what open blasting was.
Or
is, for that matter, because some people still do it.
Open blasting is a technique used in extraction where the system in which the butane is held is open to the atmosphere. So that means that the entire time that you're doing this, butane is evaporating and leaking off. And if you don't do this like in a very well ventilated outdoor area, you end up on the news, which we've all seen here in Michigan many times. Warren is specifically famous for this stuff, and that's why they've been so hard on cannabis industry businesses coming in there, because they're well aware of the dangers that exist with extraction.
Oh yeah. For those that don't know about C1D1 environments, you have a C1D1 room that's to rid you of explosive hydrocarbons in the air.
Yep.
And there's sniffers in the room that can detect a certain level of hydrocarbons. And if there's any level, it does a negative pressure vacuum and sucks all the air out within the blink of an eye.
It's and that's the beauty of this stuff going legal, because we've over the years, if you've been an extractor for a long time, like you personally know people that have probably been hurt or died. So it's definitely that I always tell people, safety is the number one concern, and the people running this, they do care about your safety, but it's up to you. You're the worker, you're the person in charge, so like you're in charge of your own safety. And I always preach that should be the first priority. And don't worry about that. Like you messed up a run, but the thing's leaking. Like just fix the situation, and that's everyone go home at the end of the day to our families. And not
money's money, but there's a fine line.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember when there was days the caregiver material get processed, and then you bring it back, and you can almost still smell the hydrocarbon on it because someone didn't purge it enough. Totally, and you can almost taste it, and everyone thought that was normal. Like, oh yeah, it's fine. It's less gassier than others, and it's like I want it to be gassy.
It's like the reason it smacked your chest so hard wasn't because it was good. That was because there was 1,200 ppm of butane in there.
So yeah, back in those days, and even still today, some people are still trying to make as much money as they can. They're rushing stuff through the systems, absolutely. And they're leaving hydrocarbons in there, and you're lighting this up on an e-nail or a rig, and it can combust.
Yeah,
I've heard of stories of people's dabs lighting on fire.
Yeah, no, I've absolutely heard that as well. It's very treacherous deal, and that's also what made like oil in the beginning kind of this like extra heady sweet thing, because like if you didn't have someone that you trusted making it, you didn't want it from Joe Schmo on the corner, like, because this is like, it's like an intimate product almost, it's like, and it's the thing I love most about hash in general is that, you tend to get that profound flower taste, but it's like what you smell in the bag that translates actually into a terpene profile in your mouth, which, not all things, sometimes, we go out to eat and it smells good, but it doesn't taste so good, right? So definitely that applies to dabs too. I mean,
consistency even as well. I mean, you can, some of it it may look good, smell good, but it doesn't smoke good because it's, it's goop. It's not pliable. It's not
well, usually in that case, it's something along the lines of, someone didn't de-wax it, the fats and lipids out of the material, or even, I've found from just running a lot of different stuff that when stuff starts to sit or get older, it's not stored properly, like vacuumed and put in a freezer, it gets a lot harsher faster. And then also gets darker, and then that leads us to the crazy boom of filtration medias when CRC hit. You remember what kind of life-changing stuff that was? And I mean, it was crazy because, before it was like, okay, it didn't matter. We're just going to turn this stuff into distillate. But then now all this, it's a wild market, because back then, dabs were worth less than distillate, and now dabs are worth more than distillate.
It's crazy.
So it makes sense to, remediate some color out of it so that you can have a better end product, and it's cleaner. So like, that's the biggest thing about all this stuff that I'm excited about, is that, with, legalization comes standardized testing and, a safer product for the consumer.
I feel as if too not the consumers, the supplier, so that being the processor or the cultivator, I feel that people aren't taking scraps and just trying to filter it and make money out of everything now, because in the past anyone would buy any type of concentrate, any type of trim, and they were making money on it. But I think there's so much competition out there now. People aren't just putting garbage out there
Right.
Because you can see the dark stuff that's got diatomaceous earth in it or tons of fats and waxes in it. And now you're realizing if I put crap out, I'm going to get looked at, I'm going to get blamed for crap. And that's going to be my image now.
Yeah. It falls back to the old extractor term, fire in, fire out.
Exactly.
If the material shows up, it's fresh and smells good, you're probably going to end up with a good product. But
if it's been sitting in the barn for a while.
Well, that's what I say to them. I tell people I'm an extraction artist. I'm not a magician.
So with regard to the lab director position, again, going back, your experience, has it always been from caregiver right into working with Hype, or did you have a pathway to get to that?
So Hype actually was born out of a necessity that came to me because we were talking earlier about when stuff's unpurged and you see that the dab light on fire, you just there's butane left in there. So back in the day, we would get we knew lots of different people. The network was strong, and people would share dumpsters sometimes or things like that. And I started noticing when extractors throw out a Home Depot bag, there's all this wax and resin in the paper bag, and it's almost like it's leaking out, right? So that led me to think, well, there's definitely still probably some THC in there, and then also along with all the anytime like something would come, we do a test run if it was dark, because again, this was before the time of CRC. Mm-hmm. So, and also before the time of distillate. So, what did you do with all this dark stuff? Well, other than put it in edibles, right?
Yep.
So, and that's where, we started pushing, Simpson oil, started getting into Simpson oil and into cancer treatments for people. And what really took us off in the beginning is every place that we were in, I would tell the owners and the people, the budtenders there, that if you have a cancer patient, we would love to give them a free cancer treatment worth of Simpson oil. If I can leave it here with you and you can give it to them, we'll give it to them. Mm-hmm. So obviously, the community is built around medical, needs. And, I hope that as it goes more rec and maybe federally legal in the future, that we don't lose sight of these people. They don't slip between the cracks, because, America is such a profit-driven country, and for some people, they can't even afford to get enough medicine to medicate themselves, mm-hmm. because the price of things has gone up now. With legalization also comes a higher price because taxes are involved and a whole plethora of, insurance, et cetera, that add on to prices that in the black market, you're working in a garage,
yep. It's hard to find product right now for med patients in general, now that you're on the topic, because everyone's just, because there's more customers and more consumers in retail, or in the adult use retail
that
side.
Even brings me to the Skyman brand of dispensaries. They closed their Traverse City medical store because they couldn't get approved for rec, and they couldn't stay afloat just on medical, because as many medical patients as there are, as we saw recreation take over, I think we lost almost half our patient registry.
Oh yeah, quick too. It wasn't a slow decline. It was like
2
overnight.
years later, half the patients were gone, and I think at one point we had almost 400,000 patients. Mm-hmm. So that was we were in the pretty high percentile for like how many patients that we had in comparison to, like, it put us on point with like California and mm-hmm. Washington and stuff like that.
It'd be nice if they just had all the same product for everybody, and then whoever had a med card, they got the benefits of it, almost like having like a membership per se.
Yeah, or like a food stamp. It should just be a tax deduction or whatever it may be, which technically actually that is part of why it ends up being cheaper, because you pay a higher tax on the recreational than you do on the medical.
Mm-hmm. Well, only thing to my knowledge is just the testing requirements for flower now, because 200 milligram edibles you can sell on med and rec now. Oh. The only thing different is the total CFUs now.
Yeah, the flower is definitely different. And part of me is like, I really like that, because if you are someone that's sick or you have a weakened immune system, mm-hmm. That's going to affect your immune system. Mm-hmm. But I feel horrible for the growers and the companies out there, because, in Michigan, we have a lot of PM out there just floating around, a lot of, microbial spores in the air. And so it makes it very difficult for these guys to pass these tests. It's almost
hard,
almost impossible sometimes.
It's a hard environment to grow in. I mean, we've got the changes in seasons all the time, whereas someone in Arizona or Florida has got pretty consistent weather patterns that you can bank on, whereas one day it's snowing here, the next day it's 90, the next day it's windy as hell. It's like you don't know what you're waking up against.
All 4 seasons in one day, baby.
And when the humidity is there, it's there. We tried growing outdoor one time, and I want to say this plant was 15 feet tall. It was the stalk was bigger than my wrist.
Yep.
And had huge dense buds, but it was just littered with mold.
Yeah.
And even in the air movement, light, everything checked out, but it was just the moisture content in the air that we breathe in is so thick.
Yeah. That was part of why the greenhouse experience was a one and done for me.
Same.
Like I said, I was never the best grower. You know, I could get by, but mainly I got by, I think, because like I'm a jack of all trades. You know, the whole thing with growing back then was, nobody can know. I can't just call an electrician to come here.
No.
Yeah, I had to go mess with the panel. Or
I have a wood shop downstairs.
Exactly. We will build it.
Yep.
So that's also a beautiful thing about the legalization is that, you know, safer environments for everyone to work in and safer for the community that they don't have to worry about, you know, their neighbor's house burning down and scorching their house because they had to grow in the basement.
Yeah. Well, it also helps you regulate quality standards as well, because at least you have some requirements for testing. So at least you're not getting just straight boof. It's going to be, you know, maybe boof that's clean.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, in order to check all those boxes, the flower has to be, you know, at least sustainable. It's not going to be just some outdoor crap that's got, you know, 4% THC that,
right.
You know.
Well, and you see, even now, you still see quite a few people that just grow for biomass outside, right? You know, they're like, oh, none of this is smokable, bud.
Yeah, they just shuck it and throw it right into centrifuge and blast distillate, and there you go.
And, yeah, exactly. And
in and out.
And so that's why I think the CRC thing is so cool, because, you know, it allowed for a bunch of product that like could have almost been dabs, but before would have been diverted. And now that the price point's gone down so far, it's like I don't think you can. Running hydrocarbon into distillate is not a very profitable game.
No, I even saw it where people were spinning terps off.
Oh yeah,
I mean, because they're trying to get all the color off as possible, whether it was all the and just leave just THC behind, and then add the terps back in later for like a sauce and diamonds type thing. But everyone's trying to just reduce that color.
Well, in fact, actually, that's one of the ways that we like to get our live resin carts put together, because we try to take THCA and then decarb it for the live resin, so that way I can like actually make a cart that came 100% strain specific from this plant. Everything's, you know, soil to oil in that plant. So, you know, we spin off the terps off the diamonds, and then decarb the diamonds in the oven, and then re-add the terps, and now the flavor profile didn't get hurt because you removed it before with no heat. You know, in the past, you know, if you were gonna try and capture some terps, you threw a cold trap on the oven and called it a day, right?
You ever smell a cold trap?
Oh man,
it's disgusting.
But that was the worst part about learning how to do distillate, man.
It's horrific.
I there was many times that there's a mouthful of throw up in the lab, because you just had to know. You're like, well, it's blue. I bet it smells great.
No.
Oh man, that is a bad fraction to put your nose up.
Yeah.
To.
So as part of the filtration process in extraction, for the viewers that don't know, pulling your undesirables out of the product to refine your product. Yep. Those undesirables are undesirable for a reason. I mean, the consistency of that material. I was very fortunate enough to be involved at Precision Extraction and go to labs all throughout the U.S. And one of them I went to in Chicago. I got my opportunity to take down a distillation unit and put it back together. And my part was the cold trap. Oh. And I'm thinking, did I step in dog crap? Like, what is like? it was beyond that. It was just so thick, and just it was a nightmare to clean. But you know, it just goes to show how much can go in and making that 1 gram cart.
Oh yeah, it's you know, distillate was the coolest thing in the beginning, because it, you know, it made it to where, you know, if your oil was only 40% THC and it would have been tasting like hay and plant material. It's like you took a dab of your grass out of the lawn out front, and you know, you have 100 grams and you end up with 35 grams of distillate, right?
Yep.
But at least now it's refined and tastes good and has no smell, hopefully, if you did it right. Because God, in the beginning, that was a big struggle for everybody, was like learning how to properly filtrate and decarb and then strip your terps. Because you know, if you tried to strip your terps before you decarbed it, you'd go to do the run, some more cannabinoids would convert over or whatever, and then all of a sudden it didn't smell bad when it went into the flask, and then your distillate's like, whoa, we got to rerun this. That definitely happened. It was a learning curve for sure.
It is everything. I mean, everything with retail processing, cultivation, everything just changes. So your product mix, you've got edibles, you've got concentrates. Concentrates, obviously, as well as your carts, vapes.
Yep, vapes. We just released some disposables now too.
Okay.
You know, got to keep up with the times.
Oh yeah, I did see those. Those look pretty sharp. So we're gonna have those in store. We just put our order in for those yesterday, actually. So yeah. Justin was on top of us for that.
He's a good guy to stay on top of.
Oh yeah. So what about infused pre-rolls? Are you guys going on that?
We currently do a ton of white labeling for infused pre-rolls. We'd like to refine the technique with it before we're gonna really release ours. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we've only been doing these infused pre-rolls for about a year and a half now. So the proof's in the pudding, and we're gearing up to push a bunch of stuff out that way. We do have one though that we do already, which is the Holy Rollers. Mm-hmm. You've seen those?
Yeah,
right?
I saw those are cool.
And those are really cool because we terp infuse them as well. So you get these profound flavors that might only kind of normally be in a strain specific cart flavor or something like that, and now we're able to infuse the flower with some of the terpenes that we can pull off, or even some botanicals if called for. And you know, it's this new product, you know, that they taste really good, and it's cool to be able to like smoke a joint and it tastes like watermelon. Yeah, like actually tastes like watermelon, right? But it still tastes like weed. It's not overpowering. It's like just.
So it's like a mix of botanical terps and cannabis terps.
And cannabis terps. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, there's some stuff out there I've had that it's like bubblegum flavor, and there's a few things. I'm more just a traditional guy, but I like to just see what's out there.
The bubblegum flavor brings me back to those the Juicy J's and those little drops you used to buy because you were smoking Reggies. You know, you got to spice these Reggies up with a couple couple drops of this bubblegum.
I used to put lemon peels in the bag and just kind of let it sit for a few hours and kind of suck up some of the moisture.
Yeah, we used to always take them and put them over a pot of boiling water and steam them for a minute to help like put some moisture back in them. And usually when you did that, it would also like a bunch of seeds would just pop out of it because the seeds swell up from the moisture. And
you gotta time it just right so the beans stay hidden in the flavors.
Well, that was the key. You flicked them all out the best you could, and
or getting the stress test,
and then it became high grade mids. Minimum seeds.
It's a BOGO. Buy one get one. Buy a nug, get a seed.
And there wasn't no sensimilia, right? But I kind of loved in my head that I got to catch the end of that, because you don't
miss it at all, do you?
No, not at all. But yes and no, because I do miss that it made me value the good weed so much more because everything was so crappy.
Yeah.
And so then when you did find somebody that had some like SFVOG or some Larry OG or just some good strains that were gassy and like,
if that was actually what it was called, because there's several instances, the name changed.
Oh, I mean, now, that's probably I think that's probably like
GG4. What is it really?
That's probably the worst trait of our industry that's commonly just accepted across the board.
Oh yeah. It's not selling. Let's change the name. It's Girl Scout cookie now. It's gone.
And the funny thing with that in my head is it just plays into the whole placebo effect of things, right?
Oh yeah.
If you tell somebody that this weed's going to make you really paranoid. They might never have been paranoid smoking weed before, but they are today. You know.
Oh man, I don't miss that one bit. I try to remember was it Dave Chappelle? He said, "What's this called?" He goes, "This is called deaf." He's like, "You mean I smoke, I'm gonna die?" He's like, "No, deaf. You smoke it, you're not gonna be able to hear shit." He's like, "I don't want to smoke that. Like, what is this?"
Did your friends ever do that to you?
Oh no, it was Cat Williams. That's what it was.
When you were growing up, did your friends ever play that game?
I can't hear you.
Yeah, no, that was a trip, man.
Oh
that and you know, obviously, 20 years later of smoking pot, it's not quite as psychedelic as it was when I was 15.
Yeah, it's much different. It's widely the stigma is being released quite a bit, and more and more you're seeing more consumers coming off the street that you would never anticipate them coming in before their regular users.
Yeah, but the craziest thing to me nowadays is where I'm like, openly smoking at something private, and I'm like, is this okay or not? And I'm like, wait, we voted on this. This is rec. Like,
right.
Like, it's just like, there's no difference between this and, your sober aunt that doesn't drink and she looks at you funny because you got a beer in your hand.
Yeah, I agree. It's cool though to see people want to cross over to the dark side per se, because then they realize like, wow, it's nothing different really. It's not that big of a deal.
It's a heck of a lot better than drinking all the time. I'll tell you that.
For sure. I for one have drink substantially less now that I consume cannabis. I wake up with no hangover. I can think. I'm not sitting there, bloated from drinking 10 beers.
Yeah, well, the only problem with that is you gotta look out for those edibles, because otherwise you might wake up more stoned than when you went to bed. It's happened.
Oh yeah, I've had a high over. I had one of those CBN gummies the other day, and it was like a 20 milligram. I woke up and I was like, "What the heck?"
Yeah, that's the Xanax cannabinoid of all the cannabinoids for sure. That thing knocks you out. We when it first started being able to be isolated like on its own like that, we would take little THC breaks, and it worked really well because I'm an insomniac without pot, and so I've literally laid there before 3-4 hours in the dark. I'm just like, all right, anytime I'll fall asleep. The second I smoke go smoke the weed, might not even have left the couch. So
what's plans for hypes right? What are the plans for hype right now? For the rest of the year moving forward, you guys looking to expand more? Because you've got to be in damn near every store.
Yeah,
I do a lot of secret shopping, and I see your product everywhere.
Yeah, it's definitely all over the place, and it's a good feeling because it brings it back to the gray area days of when everyone was just a donation shop, and I mean we were in almost 100 stores back then. So
wow. Do you know how many you're in now?
We're over 300.
Okay. That's a lot. It's impressive.
Yeah.
Even just being in that many stores, but being able to continuously supply them.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So that is the biggest challenge, because we don't ever want to like be perceived in an image where like, hey, why I can't get them and I want them, right?
Yep.
That's always the biggest issue. The hurdle is getting to that point to have enough inventory to actually be able to supply everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, we have good partners, and they're pretty well endowed financially, so we got some pretty sweet new equipment and things in the works. We're definitely gonna be releasing some other cannabinoid blends of gummies in the future. I can't really tell too much about it, but like I said, there's a whole bunch of new products or new cannabinoids that are being isolated now, and the state does allow us to work with hemp licenses and stuff to purchase like specifically isolated cannabinoids, because usually in the regular legal cannabis market, back in the day we would try to like grow a strain that could just produce more oil that had that higher content now.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now we can isolate these, different
CBN, CBG, CBD.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so like that's game changing to be able to like give somebody, like CBG has insane inflammatory benefits, right? And it doesn't get you high.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you know, your grandma that does not want to get stoned, you know, you can give her that and it's going to work way better than just CBD. Or, you know, you have a conjunction of CBD and CBG and, you know, maybe a little CBN, and then all of a sudden now grandma's feeling great. She's moving around, and that's actually that leads me to think about, like, that was the biggest thing actually. Now that I think about it, that really made me want to grow this stuff, like grow the brand and get bigger, was because I know that, you know, we care about the people and we want to help anyone out that we can. And so when you hear a patient, you know, tell you like, hey, like my son has, you know, seizures and epilepsy, and what, you know, and when we give him one of these gummies, it makes him a different kid.
Mm-hmm.
That, and you can see the excitement in the parents' eyes and stuff like that, you know, or, you know, the whole cancer thing, right? Like when we give out a cancer treatment, and, you know, a family member that wants to help their other family member, but they can't afford it, and now we just gifted them this, like that was huge for me. That was like,
it's gotta be rewarding, feeling like you're almost like, not like a doctor per se, but you're getting you're building something that someone's able to consume, and they get the benefit of it, like health wise. That's got to be a pretty cool experience.
Exactly. And that's so, like when we used to make chocolate bars back in the day, right? You know, obviously I'm calculating how many we're making, blah, blah. And, you know, at one point we had made, over a course of a couple of years, over 250,000 chocolate bars.
Wow.
So I started to think about, like, wow, like look at how many people that probably, like, even if it was just like, it helped out their Sunday be a little less light,
right?
Be a little lighter,
less painful,
I mean? A little less painful. And then, yeah, that same thing with people with opiates. You know, I've had lots of people that we've been able to help and wean off, or at least dramatically reduce the amount of opiates they use, because, you know, Simpson oil, like it really kind of affects you differently than just like eating a regular edible.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
it lasts a lot longer.
Well, I think it just had a high CBN content back then for what it was compared to anything else. And so, like, it was just like kind of like almost like, I want to call it a dirty, hazy high, but like that's like the best way I can describe it, versus like a distillate is like a clean, you know, like it doesn't linger on, like you don't really get like burnt out from it. You know what I mean? And, you know, and that was the big thing about dabs too, is I love to do dabs, because I used to always, like, you know, after smoking a few joints, I had to take a nap. I had to. But when I do dabs, I could just, you know, take another dab instead of a nap. And
what do you think that's from? Because I got to ask you this, because I've smoked all different, you know, whether it's dabs or the pre-roll, whatever it may be. When I smoke a dab, the high is so much different. It doesn't give me that lethargic effect, though.
So it's because when you do a dab, you're actually vaporizing. Okay. So you're vaporizing that oil off your nail. And when you smoke a joint, or a bowl, you're combusting said marijuana.
So you're getting the undesirables.
So exactly. You're getting some undesirables in there, which, you know,
fats, waxes, all that shit.
and that's going to, like, on an entourage effect, make you more sluggish or lethargic than in comparison to, you know, you're smoking all this other stuff there, right? Yep. Whereas, you know, a dab is, you know, at least 60%, maybe up to 85%, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, you're getting a quote unquote cleaner product, right? Which it would, to me, explain why you get a cleaner high off of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've always wondered that, because, you know, it makes sense though too, because if you're smoking a cart, for example, and sometimes when you're smoking a cart, you can kind of see the resin towards the tip or whatever from just inhaling so many hits from it. But whereas you look at a pre-roll, you smoke a pre-roll down, you look in the filter, you're like, shit, there's that much stuff in there. But it's the undesirables. It's the fats and waxes, lipids, all that stuff that's pulling through to the filter. Yep. So, and then you look at a dab, and it's kind of being filtered by the water as well if you're using like a rig.
Right, yeah.
To cool the smoke down a little bit more. But I'm sure it acts as another filtration step.
Future 4200 would disagree with us. He's dry dabs for life.
Perhaps. What else? You know, we're obviously freelancing here.
Yeah. So we've definitely been working on trying to potentially get in and have a couple other labs out there as well. We have an ethanol lab that we're working with now. So I do have a centrifuge to go play with.
Okay.
When I
Which
want it.
model?
It's the Delta 15.
Oh, Cup 15. Okay.
Yeah.
I those things, all those systems give me nightmares because when we were in the trenches and we were having sales, and it was just there was new models coming out everywhere. There's the Chinese versions, this version, that version. It was like an arms race.
Yeah, no, totally.
Who can get the bombs quicker?
Yeah, like it did. Everyone had the same idea. It was just whose metal landed from China first.
Yeah, exactly.
Like because there's only there in reality back then. There was there's 500 buyers out there, and that was it. So.
Well, even now, as the industry continues to mature, and you get the ASME certifications, you get all of these GMP certifications. Yep. There's so many things now that they're starting to influence the industry with as the legalization is inching towards completion. It's interesting to see. I'm curious to see what happens too, because we're in automotive capital of the world,
yep.
And we've got the big three, and it makes you wonder, like, who's the big three of the manufacturers for extraction going to be soon, or the big three of
right.
what this might be. But it's slow. It's been so slow and kept everybody outside it. It's like, what the heck?
Well, yeah, it was hard for those guys because for a long time they had to kind of play this gray shadow game of well, this is actually for extracting lavender.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know what you mean by cannabis.
We would do stuff with the border, is not tariffs. What I'm thinking of customs. Yeah. They get held by customs, and we'd try to send something to Europe, and they're like, "What's this for?" It's a lavender extractor, and then they just kind of sit there in limbo for a couple of weeks, and then it would slowly just get let loose, and we're like, "What in the heck?" Yeah, they didn't know anything.
Customs is the worst with that stuff. We had back when we had first started, we had done a few small orders of carts, and we finally put in this 15,000 cart order to get us branded carts, and we were just trying to level up hardcore. And the boxes come and there's no cart in it. It's just the mouthpiece and the rubbers that the top and the bottom of the cart, and along with a letter from CBP saying we confiscated your cartridges because they were related to marijuana, because they Googled the brand off of it. And
really?
We were all over, weed maps back then and stuff. So, a simple Google search pulled up quite a bit. Back then, you even now, I feel like they can sometimes nab your stuff. I mean, it's not,
absolutely.
And if you're not an actual cartridge or tobacco distributor now, it makes it really hard to fight with them about it, because we fought. I think I hired an attorney, because that was a lot of money. It was
well, even nowadays too, because you can get everyone's creating knockoffs. The C-cell cart, it was back in the day when you could see C-cell, everyone was like, okay, this is a legit cart, and then they started making knockoff C-cells, and they're going to that extent to just save 10 cents per cart. Or and you're like, what the heck? And you don't even know what the heck you're buying anymore, because everyone's just trying to rob Peter to pay Paul.
And then you fail for chromium.
Yeah, and then that gets into distillate. And that was another thing too, is that when we were dealing with extraction equipment, is that people would test hot for something, and they'd sit there and keep trying to blame it on the equipment. But when it gets down to the atomizer on the cart atomizer, the last piece was the puzzle, piece of the puzzle that was failing. It's interesting to understand that too, because consumers might not see what goes into making that product, but every single step of the way, there's that much chance that something can be contaminated.
Yeah.
Whether it's from the beginning of the plant matter planted right in the soil, or once it's in the oil in your hand. And you've gone through every single step of the way to ensure that the consumer has the right piece of product to consume with.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's why we implement absolutely no isopropyl alcohol allowed in any of the labs, because isopropyl is just a splash on something.
Oh,
it's done.
It's
done.
Well, that, and you basically extract the extraction. If you do anything, if you touch any product with it, it's just going to dilute that or whatever.
Right.
But even it ruins everything. Your gears and your equipment. I mean, it just eats everything.
Yeah. We found that out quickly back in the day with the first white film that we ever played with. Obviously,
Run it dry with no.
No. But we just like I'm all about having a clean lab. I want it like sterile, like it's like a hospital room in that place.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time when we were done, we'd shut it down. Before we shut it down, I would clean it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, the little gaskets and seals in there are not meant to be chilling in alcohol all the time.
Yeah.
So
it eats away those.
So somehow I wore out gaskets that were meant to last 2 years and, 6 months. And
and then they find out too, you need to add some distillate there before you start your next run to keep the gears oiled. And it has to have that viscosity in the gear pumps too.
It won't hold the vacuum.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like you basically have to waste product to run product.
Yeah.
Essentially. I mean, because some of it you use to keep the gears moving, but I feel for you.
Yeah.
So aside from the product mix, as the lab director, we can kind of end it at this one. What's expected of you as a lab director? Because as people walking off the streets can see what they're dealing with on the dispensary side, but what goes into being a lab director? Are you forecasting demands? Are you putting together these formulations? What exactly?
So we like the responsibilities are like kind of having formulations to try and give the best possible estimate to what we're gonna get, to reviewing data if the material's been tested, then I can do some calculations that way, and as well as trying to keep us relevant, innovating along the way while we're going, because this is probably, I don't think the only thing faster than this industry is probably tech. Like I've never seen an industry go from underground boots. I mean, like that's why I'm so happy that I am like where I'm at in it. I got to experience a little, just enough taste of the old to know how good this is.
Yeah.
Because like hiding your weed in your air box in the front of your car because it was illegal was like, that was stressful.
Even just having your med card on you, you're like, man, you feel like you're a taboo.
Right.
I got a license to grow.
Well, in the beginning, I used to like be like, they tell you like, oh, if you have your med card and you have your stuff, just tell them, right? But the first few interactions that I ever went through like that, it was horrible. Mm-hmm. So I stopped telling them. It just says I don't have anything. And then we
was this an invitation to search you?
Well, that's what it became. It just became I have a card. I'm telling you I have some, and I'm telling you it's under the amount I'm allowed to have. But then the best part about that was that then as Normal and some other activist groups kind of helped like push patient compassion with police officers, that hey, like this is like you're it's not just a criminal that's going to get high. These are people that need this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So you should treat them nicely. Don't treat them like they're a crook, because in the beginning it was like, oh, we smell weed. It was like they're just like, oh, yes. Touchdown.
Yeah, got my quota for the month. This is a bonus.
And so when I had the full rack of cards, I had 5 caregiver cards and my card, and along with license and insurance, and I'd be everything, right?
Oh yeah.
And they would look at it stupidly and then be like, "Which one's yours?" I'm like, "Well, sir, they're all mine, actually." And that sometimes that worked better than others, but
I'll never forget that one of the first, I think it was the first week I was at our store in Flint, and it was all med at that time, and a patient came in to purchase flour, and she had like, I want to say like 6 ounces or whatever. I'm like, what's going on here? And she's like, oh, it's for all my patients. I'm buying these for this, and this. And I was like, whoa, like this is, and then it started to hit me. I'm like, okay, it's not just an ornament for your pocket. People actually use these.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I've schooled a couple state police officers before where like they literally were like trying to tell me like, you're only allowed to have 2.5 ounces. And I'm like, yes, but that's per card, sir. So times that by these 6 cards, that's 15 ounces. So like I used to be able to roll around 1 ounce short of a pound, and it was all good.
Yeah. Depends on who weighed it.
Right. They weigh it in the bag. They're like, it's over.
Yeah, right.
You're over by 14 grams. I'm like, sir, that's the exact weight of the bag.
Oh yeah, even the stigma of just the smell. I don't even notice the smell of it really, unless it's some really good flour anymore. You're just like immune to it anymore.
Oh, and so the craziest thing about that is I went to Mexico recently, and like one of the homies on the trip, he smuggled some good stuff in because the stuff down there is not so great.
Yeah.
And then it became a almost paranoia of like, yo, like we reek and these people don't smell this shit. So like everywhere we went, people were like, mota, eh? I'm like, fuck, like wait till the federales roll up on us, bro. This shit's illegal.
Yeah, I can smell it now. You start to get complacent and you just forget about it, and then you're like, oh crap. Yeah, I'll be at like family dinner. And I'm like, what? Everyone's like, you stink.
Yeah, no,
that smelled great.
I definitely with my friends, we still we'll put a joint out like on the way into the restaurant, and then like get the stink eye from all the older people. Like, you just ruined the whole vibe here. And then I think about it. I remember like when like there was a time where like maybe I like wasn't smoking or I was on a break or whatever. I was gonna get drug tested by my dad or something, so like I couldn't smoke, and like my friends would come in from smoking, and it's like it actually is a pretty strong smell, even just like off of like the hand and body of like someone, they smoked it, they put it out, right? It reminds me of like my mom when I was growing up used to kind of tell me little white lies about how she wasn't smoking or whatever, and she used to always have the it's like orange scented hand lotion.
Oh, mask the smell.
Yeah, she come in from outside smelling almost like a cigarette butt and orange, and I didn't know back then, and it makes me think of like a couple times where like people that have stoner parents, when they're like 8 years old and they're like at a concert and they're like, that smells like my dad's cigar. And I'm just dying because it's like yeah, your dad smokes pot.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. Well, I don't have anything else.
Cool.
What else do we? Let's see here. Well, you guys have the food truck that you're bringing around.
Yeah,
so we're gonna get some vendor days going here in the next next week or two.
Yeah. Did I fuck it up?
Oh,
okay. All right. No, it's good. I think it's good.
He's good. 2 more minutes.
Yeah, so the food truck is something really sweet, it's something that we had always dreamed about in the gray days, like yeah, when we can be fully legal, like let's go give food to them because like everyone's high and wants to eat,
right? I saw it at the Brooklyn when there was I think it was the Olympics.
Yep.
And Justin was in there cooking up tacos, and it's a badass truck, and that thing's dialed in.
Oh man,
that's a way to do vendor days. Is you show up there, educate the staff and customers, then you feed them. It's a full-fledged. It's a good system.
You don't forget the hype truck.
No. So we'll have that in the next week or two here. We're going to be setting up some vendor days with Hype.
Heck yeah.
So we'll get Justin out there. Hopefully we'll get you out there.
Yeah, that brings me to the 420 pizza total this year. I think we did 600 and something pizzas this year.
Wow.
And the food truck was out too, but like we had we had a whole plethora of people literally delivering pizzas, and it was crazy because I have a 1990 Ford Bronco, and
is it white?
It is the OJ white. I'll show you a picture when we're done. You're gonna laugh. And so I had the biggest load that I had picked up of them. I put 40 pizzas in the car.
Oh.
So I don't know if you've ever, I've never been a pizza delivery driver. And then when you are, I guess they have that little hot bag, right? Well, I mean, it was warm out already, and the Bronco doesn't have AC.
Oh no.
And I mean, I was burning alive from these pizzas. You have 40 pizzas in a cab of a car. The windows were steaming up. It's hot. I didn't know it was such an ordeal.
Yeah, 40's got to be a ton. We had you guys, the Hype truck was at our Flint store for handing out turkeys for Thanksgiving last year.
Oh.
So we handed out I want to say it was like 100-something turkeys. That was fun though. You guys have done a great job with the philanthropy of that though, so that's good involvement.
Well, we love to do that, and that like brings us back to the roots of what we did, and I'm really hopeful that in the future we're gonna be able to get like a charitable organization going, so that like we can start doing some I really want to bring back the Rick Simpson oil outreach stuff. You know, it's
we have a good following at all three of our stores right now. We have some customers that have like not weekly, but a monthly order where we'll make a delivery to them and we'll bring them a whole month's supply. And some of the suppliers we work with, and we'd love to work with you guys on that one too. So please let us know when you're looking to do that.
Yeah,
and if any listeners out there have any groups or anything they want us to get involved in with some of those, that'd be great. We'd love to help out.
Heck yeah.
For sure. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you joining us.
Appreciate you
go grab some hype at your local Planet store, or for that matter, probably any local store, because you guys are everywhere.
If you go there and we don't have it, message our page. We'll get it in there.
Jake will make sure it's there.
Well, Justin will do that.
Yeah. But he'll make it.
I'll rag on him to get it done.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, brother.
Appreciate you, man.
Awesome.